right, welcome back everyone to another episode of BAM GPG. I'm your host Ben.
And I'm your co-host Bryson.
And you can follow us here, like and subscribe
TikTok.
on YouTube. And then you can follow us on TikTok at bam.brands. Again, that's bam.brands on TikTok. Be sure to like and subscribe to us here on YouTube. So I just wanted to open up today's episode here, talk about a signing, or not necessarily a restructure, but an extension for the Green Bay Packers here within the last couple days. Not a player we're talking about here, rather our special teams coordinator, Rich Bisaccia. Mm-hmm. So there were some rumors floating around this offseason that he may retire. He is 64, I believe. So,
oh wow,
yeah, he was had 1 year left on his deal. So there were rumors, that he may retire this offseason. But Green Bay kind of sweetened the pot a little bit for him, adding an extra year onto his contract. So. For the foreseeable future, for at least the next couple of years, he'll be back coaching our special teams. So we did, historically, I guess over the last decade, not historically, but over the last decade, that's really been an area on the team where we've struggled, and it's cost us some chances at a Super Bowl,
we're
to
just
be honest
now
with
getting
you.
the hang of it.
Yeah, I mean, they're just now, it was, I'm not going to lie, the first half of the year, and even towards the end of the year, there were some, moments on special teams where we really struggled. You talk about that return for a touchdown with Chicago, right? The special teams just absolutely look lost on that. But early in the year, with our kicking struggles, Whelan, it's always been solid. He's a solid punter. You know what to expect out of Whelan. But, special teams just time and time again have seemed to really trouble the Packers, right? So it's not something where, we can just be middle of the road, average special teams and just really leave it up to our offense and defense to win the game for us. But special teams has certainly been costly for us in the biggest moments. You look at just this season alone, the opening kickoff in Philadelphia, Keyshawn Nixon fumbled it. Just led to an early 7 points for Philadelphia. In games like that, it's hard to start in a hole. You're playing in Philadelphia on the road in the playoffs.
Which kind of cost us the game.
It did. It sets the tone for the game, right? First play of the game, you have a turnover, and they capitalize on it.
If we wouldn't have scored that, then the last drive would have been if we got a touchdown, we would have won. Right?
Yeah. Because at one point, the fourth quarter, we were down. What was it, 16-10? You take 7 off the board, we're up 10. It's a completely different ball game at that point. Jeff Hafley's defense. Again, we'll touch on that. Jeff Hafley's defense absolutely played well enough to win that game. Mm-hmm. It's just tough. Your special teams giving up a fumble. First play of the game, opening kickoff, and, Philadelphia capitalizing off it. So it's a tough way to start the game. And we go back a few years, the game that Bryson and I were at in Lambeau, again, playoff game against the 49ers. You could argue special teams, Green Bay kind of sputtered out after really that opening drive, taking it down, A.J. Dillon scoring the touchdown, really didn't do a whole lot, but defense played well enough to win that game, but special teams really failed us that game. Mm-hmm. Talk about that block punt for a touchdown, the missed field goal, and take it back several more years from there. Before then, you look at that Seattle game, NFC Championship game to make the Super Bowl, right? Green Bay had to have everything go wrong to lose that game, and you think about, it's haunting to think about it as a Packer fan, but, we were an onside recovery away from going to the Super Bowl that year. who knows? I mean, we may be sitting with another trophy in our case, if we come away with that win. But again, special teams failed us. We didn't get the onside kick. Seattle ended up recovering it, and the rest is history. So special teams has certainly been something that's plagued.
Wait, did we kick the onside kick or Seattle?
Seattle kicked the onside kick that game. Yeah, so that would have been a little bit before your time, but yeah, Seattle kicked the onside kick. They needed a lot of things to go right for that game, and Green Bay needed almost everything to go wrong to lose that game, and everything went wrong for us that game. So we recover that onside kick in that game. The game's over. Green Bay's heading to the Super Bowl, but we didn't recover it. Seattle kicked it and got the onside and ended up scoring a touchdown. We went into overtime, and Seattle won the game. So, again, special teams has been something that's plagued Green Bay. It's time and time again. This will be the third year for Rich. You're hoping to see a little bit more improvement than what we've seen. There's still a lot of blunders. I know when we're at games watching, every time there's a punt, you're just praying that the guy doesn't fumble it, or, if we're punting the ball, they're returning it, just people not staying in their lanes, missing their assignments. And
even though Brandon McManus is a kicker, I still am worried.
It is. Yeah, I mean, special teams, it's, I don't get the sense that it's something that a lot of teams in the league worry about, but being a Packers fan, we have some haunting memories of some bad special teams play. So, Bisaccia coming back, we'll see what he can do. I mean, he certainly has the special teams playing better than where they were when he took over, right? So we were dead last in the league and ranked dead last in the league in special teams prior to the hiring of Bisaccia. We're certainly not dead last anymore, but it's still an area of concern for the Packers. I would be happy being in the middle of the pack with special teams, right? Really allow our offense and defense to win the game for us.
Yeah.
So we'll see what this means. Hopefully we can keep continuing. Kickoffs nowadays are pretty much a moot subject. You don't see a whole lot of returns, especially with the new rule this year.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I heard a rumor that onside kicks are getting banned. I heard a rumor.
I mean, they've put so many limitations on it already. I'd hate to see it completely go. As it is right now, you're not allowed to declare an onside until the fourth quarter, and if you're a losing team, and then there's no more surprise onside kicks. It's you have to announce it, give each team an equal opportunity to recover the kick.
Well, it's not equal.
No, it's absolutely not equal. So it's a lot tougher to receive an onside kick. So, which makes it all the more important, right, to have your special teams clicking. Absolutely. So again, it'll be something to look out for. Obviously, we haven't seen the results we've been hoping for since this hire. So, going into this year, maybe this is the year we start to see things turn around on our special teams. So, want to transition away from that. Just want to touch on another. And you probably recall, Bryce, and kind of right around the trade deadline, was a lot of talk on Myles Garrett. The Browns going to move on from Myles Garrett? And it certainly makes sense for them, right? Because the Browns aren't in a win now mode, right?
When they are, he's going to be pretty much retired.
Yeah, I mean, he's with his age. By the time they're not going to be competitive this year, they're not going to be competitive next year. They're in a rebuild. Myles Garrett's aging. It sort of reminds you of the Lions wasting Calvin Johnson almost, right? But it doesn't appear that Cleveland's going to move on from him. So the Cleveland Browns general manager today released a statement saying that we want him to retire here in Cleveland. So pretty much slamming the door shut on any trade possibility for Myles Garrett, which, it's disappointing. He's certainly not a guy you're going to find that ready in the draft without developing him. So,
Yeah.
Myles Garrett, there were some speculation that, Green Bay may be interested in.
Yeah.
It's probably a far stretch because if they were to trade him, you're going to be giving up a lot of draft capital. And as we've talked in the past, that's just typically not something that Green Bay does, right? Green Bay really covets their draft picks, but,
Yeah.
and we haven't hit. We really haven't hit on, get to the quarterback defensive ends. We've drafted Lucas Van Ness. He's hasn't seemed to be that guy. So at some point, you got to wonder: are you overvaluing those draft picks, right? When you could go out and get a guy like him. So we'll see. But as it appears right now, the Browns are not ready to move on from Myles Garrett, and he appears to be heading back to Cleveland for this upcoming season. So where's that take us to, right? So what's out there? I mean, obviously you have the draft, right, Bryson? So there's always draft prospects, but where's that leave Green Bay with options? So another big name,
Maxx Crosby.
Yep, Maxx Crosby. Another big name that they've talked about is Maxx Crosby. But if we look at his 2024 season, Bryson, his PFF grade. I mean, if you're looking at his PFF grade, I mean they're pretty solid. I mean, it's certainly an upgrade over what we currently have on our team. Again, he's Maxx Crosby. Dealt with some injuries towards the end of the season, so that certainly probably impacted his grade here and his statistics a lot this year. But what did PFF grade him out at, Bryson? His overall grade this year was
74.1.
74.1.
Above the average.
Yep, it's above the average. So overall for defensive ends, that ranks him 35th out of 211 defensive ends this year. His pass rush grade was a 70.1, 43rd out of 211. His run defense, a little bit better in his pass. He was 24th out of 211. Finished the season with 25 tackles, 8 sacks, 10 assists. So pretty solid. I mean, he's certainly down from where he was in previous years. I think he graded out upwards into the 90s. So, I mean, he's certainly a down year for Maxx Crosby. So, what's that mean for his trade value? Are the Raiders still going to be looking at premium picks? Probably, right? Is it worthy of a first-round pick, do you think, Bryson?
No.
So, if you could maybe package, together like a second, third.
Yeah, but the Packers don't want to do that.
No.
The draft's in Green Bay, so.
The draft is in Green Bay, so I don't see us moving a lot of picks. So maybe, and it could be something where you do a second this year and maybe do a conditional pick next year, depending on whatever the conditions are, right? If he plays so many snaps, his stats, whatever the conditions may be, a third possibly turning into a second next year, that may be enough to entice the Raiders to move on from Maxx Crosby. So we'll see. Another guy out there, his name's been kind of around the rumor mill here recently, Bryson, is Khalil Mack.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to run through his stats on PFF real quick?
Yeah. Overall grade 90.4.
Fantastic. That lands him 5th out of 211 defensive ends this year.
Pretty good.
Yep.
Pass rush grade 79.9, 16th.
Again, that's pretty darn good, especially for a player his age. He's 33 years old, going to be 34. Fantastic stats, right? He's still overall scoring 90.4.
And then you have your defensive grade 88.
Which puts him second in the league for all
I
defensive
wonder who
ends.
is first.
That's a good question. I'm gonna guess probably Watt. I mean, we can certainly pull that up, but finished the season. Khalil Mack, 24 tackles, solo tackles, 7 sacks, 3 assists, and 2 forced fumbles. Another thing I don't have pulled up on here, but something, he's great at, batted passes. Actually, I have it right here. 6 batted passes this year, which
#1.
ranks him first in the league. So he's absolutely a force to be reckoned with still, despite his age. So to me, probably the most enticing because you're not going to have to give up a lot of draft capital to get him, right? So we covered Maxx Crosby, looked a little bit at Khalil Mack. So I just wanted to look at a couple of guys Green Bay currently has and see where they kind of stack up against these guys. So our first guy that we're looking at here is Myles Garrett. So his overall grade for the year was a 73.8. Not terrible. Puts him at 36 overall for all defensive ends. Pass rush grade, this is where Green Bay's really struggling, was a 66.3. Puts him 65th overall. Run defense grade, he really, that's where he excelled. He had a 75.3, which would put him at 17th in the league for all defensive ends. So that's a pretty good grade. He scored out at a 73.8 overall on PFF. Pretty solid stats. Again, we're just really lacking that pass rush. He finished the season with 29 tackles, 8 sacks, 11 assists, and 1 forced fumble. So, again, solid season, but, it's not that premier pass rusher that Green Bay so desperately needs, or appears to need anyway. So, again, looking at his batted passes, he had 1 for the year, which puts him 31st in the league. And then kind of moving across the other side of the ball here, kind of our younger guy, from Iowa, Lucas Van Ness. He had an overall, scored out overall this year at a 53.8. So
Not good.
Not good at all. So that's actually 161st out of 211 defensive ends graded this year. So it's not great. And this is one I was a little surprised by. So his pass rush grade was a 65.5, 74th out of 211. It's average. I wouldn't say above average. I'd say average to below average, which it's better than I expected, right? Here's one where I had expected him, just based off the eye test, us being at games watching him when he is on the field. His run defense grade was a 45.2, which is 193rd out of 211. I was... That's not good at all. And I was surprised by that because, I felt he excelled at that this year. But, according to PFF, they disagree. So he finished the season, Lucas Van Ness, with 19 solo tackles, 4 sacks, 7 assists, and 1 forced fumble this year. Didn't have any batted passes this year, which is, something you look for. So, second season, you really look for him to take that next step, and it just wasn't there this year. So, unfortunately, maybe he kind of goes into this offseason, retools, and comes back stronger next year. But, just looking at these two, Myles Garrett, pretty solid player. He's not that premier guy that you're going to expect to get to the ball or need to get to the ball. But we'll see. What Green Bay ends up doing, again, we talked about Maxx Crosby, Khalil Mack, so we'll see which direction they go. If I had to guess, if they were going to truly pursue somebody, it's probably not going to be Maxx Crosby. As you mentioned, drafts in Green Bay, they're probably not going to give up that draft capital, right?
Yeah.
So Khalil Mack, from that standpoint, probably makes the most sense for the Packers. Given the fact you're not going to have to give up draft capital, you're probably going to have to front load his contract. Maybe have an out in year 2 just because of his age. The contract will probably look big from a years and number standpoint, but really most of that will probably be front loaded into the first year with the team option, second or third year. But for me, Khalil Mack probably makes the most sense for Green Bay, and he's a guy that you can bring in there and really, truly have some of these younger guys. Even Rashawn Gary, for all intents and purposes, he's a young guy still, right? So, and then Lucas Van Ness, obviously, still a project. Rashawn Gary, 27 years old, so you'd like to see him really step up this coming year. He's 27. He should be in the prime of his career. Lucas Van Ness, 23 years old, right? So super young. A lot of talent. We just need to kind of finesse some of those skills for him. So if you had to guess, Bryson, which direction do you think the Packers probably head in with this?
Khalil Mack.
Khalil Mack. For those same reasons, probably?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be my assumption as well. So, but we'll see what they do. Should be exciting times coming up here. I expect Green Bay to be somewhat active this offseason.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't see them trading a whole lot unless it's to acquire additional draft capital. So. They have some money to spend, so I think they'll probably go out and free agents, see what's available out there. If they're able to get Khalil Mack on a somewhat team-friendly deal,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense for Green Bay. Certainly wouldn't be disappointed if we were able to get Maxx Crosby. Just would be a little bit concerned on the drop-off we've seen from 23 to 24. But, he's certainly still a force to be reckoned with. Certainly would be welcomed on the Packers, but overall, Khalil Mack probably makes the most sense, especially with Myles Garrett, who's arguably probably the best defensive end in the game, being off the board. So we'll see which direction they go, but should make for a fun, interesting offseason. Mm-hmm. But we'll be back with you guys here again tomorrow, and then at the end of the week, Bryson, we have a special guest that's going to be joining us. So stay tuned for that. Mm-hmm. Should be a pretty fun episode, and we'll keep you updated.
Mm-hmm. As always,
go Pack, go!